But they are given information that they were loaded up with drugs, and that's the thing that matters. When they're loaded up with drugs, they're fair game. And every one of those ships they're not ships, they're boats, they're speedboats. They're extremely fast, record-setting type speedboats. They cost a lot of money, and they have a lot of money because they're drug sellers.
What would you say about targeting these so-called drug boats and whether it's fair game, as the president says?
We've had a classified briefing put on on behalf of the Armed Services Committee by folks within the Pentagon, and we asked him for some additional information with regard to the legal opinions and so forth that have been used in order to authorize these strikes. We haven't received that yet. We'd like to see that before we actually make comments regarding the legality of it. But the one thing we do know, we want those drugs out of the United States, and we know that the president wants those drugs out of the United States. And so the end result, are we pleased with the fact that some of those drug runners are gone now? Yes. But we want to make sure that we're doing it according to international law. What we don't have yet are the legal arguments that were made and that these actions are based upon. So we'll withhold some of that judgment until we actually get that information that we have requested.
But you must have had questions about that legality if you requested that information, correct?
We simply wanted to know what was the legal basis, show us what it was, and we have not had that delivered to us yet. We recognize that they may very well want to keep it confidential, but we think as an oversight committee, part of our job is to ask those hard questions. There's no reason for us to believe that they don't have it, but we want to see it. We think that's part of our job.
Okay, finally, what would you say about your level of optimism about peace in Ukraine after what was obviously achieved in Gaza? And do you think the president should be sending the Ukrainians some Tomahawk missiles?
You know, I think peace through strength is probably the best message out there. President Zelensky will be back in town again at the end of this week. We hope that he has a very successful meeting with the President of the United States. We think President Trump is recognizing that President Putin has no real desire to stop the war. And I think President Trump has tried everything that he can think of to peacefully resolve this issue. But one of the areas that may very well make a difference to Mr. Putin is the fact that if we provide them with Tomahawk missiles that could be launched from land-based systems, that might very well make him wake up and realize that this is not going to go down easy, and that probably it's time to take a second look at whether or not he could ever win that war. But I think we need to stand very strong with Ukraine and send a message to Mr. Putin that he is in the wrong, that this is his problem, that he caused it, and that we believe and we will stand with the people of Ukraine.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.